Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, your guide to crypto powered change. Nick Mikhalevsky, Senior Sales Manager here at The Giving Block. Flying solo today, my colleague Pietro is out in the field, but really excited to bring a very special episode to you today. I'm very excited to have a conversation with Matt Fitzgerald. Matt is the founder and principal of Fitz Partners, an award-winning social impact studio that partners with the world's best creators to support the most important causes. You probably know him from some very impactful campaigns and some very special friends, together with YouTube stars Mr. Beast and Mark Rober. Matt co-founded and led the landmark Team Trees, Team Seas, and most recently the Team Water campaign. These campaigns have set some new benchmarks for the creator-led philanthropy movement, and continued Matt's track record of some really innovative and movement building that it's been really amazing to see. So with that, Matt, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Nick.
Yeah, so I guess, Matt, were you always kind of in the philanthropy space? What's kind of the genesis story? How'd you find your way to, to some of these creator communities and starting to go down this road of philanthropy and impact?
Yeah, well, I grew up like in a family where being of service was really important, and there was a real history of that. It looked differently on different parts of my family tree, but growing up, I was always volunteering and working in nonprofits. And when I got older, I started getting really involved in campus organizing. And so I realized when I got to college that a lot of the things that I cared about, the social issues that I was working on, whether they were about the environment or connected more to people, like they were kind of organized by nonprofits. And so after college, I got into the nonprofit sector, specifically like environmental movement building. And I kept kind of trying to find ways that we could reach more people and bring them into common cause. And eventually that sort of took the form of digital marketing and digital strategy for some of the world's sort of boldest advocacy campaigns. But I kept getting frustrated by kind of a shared delusion that we had in many cases, where it was like inside the building, we could make a video and it would get like 50,000 views and we would all be happy about it. And outside of the building, like that was not a successful video. And obviously it's more complicated than that because the video is like designed to, influence someone in a certain way to take a certain action to advance a cause. But I had friends who had started a viral video production company in the Valley, and just by being in their videos, I had like 1 million views as like a PA and an extra. And so I knew what success looked like in the creator economy. This is the early days of the creator economy, but I didn't see that same benchmark being applied inside these organizations that were working on some of the most important issues in the world. And so I wanted to bridge that gap. And so I started experimenting. And eventually that led me to working with creators directly and kind of reverse engineering campaigns to meet them and their audiences where they were, and then to bring the best of the social sector, meaning the nonprofit sector and the philanthropic sector, to the creator economy, and finding ways to tap into the superpowers of both. And so that's what I've been doing for like the last 7 years now. And there's more people doing it every day. It's a growing field, but I think it's an incredibly important one because everyone right now is battling for attention. And so that's a big shift that's going on. And I think it's as fundamental as, what social media did to the nonprofit sector. So that's what we're in the middle of right now. And I hope that these campaigns are kind of shining a light for what's possible, because I think we're just tapping into that. And obviously crypto philanthropy is a part of that, empowering it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I guess, when you were kind of coming up through the ranks, is that the same time that sort of like the Mr. Beast kind of arc is also forming? And how'd you guys get connected, or who found who? And just love to hear kind of like how you guys initially had that spark of like teaming up and what it's led to.
Yeah, I met Jimmy. I'm gonna call him Jimmy. I met Mr. Beast when he was 20 years old, and he just crossed 20 million subscribers. So, for context, you know how many he has right now? I haven't actually checked recently, but it's north of 400 million on his main channel alone, and he's got 8 channels. So it gives you a sense. He had actually teamed up with Mark Rober, who's the top science and education creator on the internet. At the time, Mark had about, I think, 9 million subscribers. And the two of them had decided to plant 20 million trees with their audience in order to celebrate Mr. Beast hitting 20 million subs. So when he hit like 3 or 4 million, he'd given away an equivalent number of pennies to that number subscriber. And so he had this reputation for spectacle and celebrating these milestones. And so he'd asked his audience, like, how should I celebrate 20 million? And someone on Reddit, the post is still up, someone on Reddit said plant 20 million trees. And to Jimmy's credit, he took it seriously. And someone on Twitter suggested he team up with Mark, presumably because they thought Mark would like build a drone army to plant the trees. And together they linked up with the Arbor Day Foundation. After exploring a couple of more harebrained schemes, they decided to go with some tree planting pros. And that was when I got involved. The campaign was going to be a challenge along the ice bucket, sort of along the lines of the ice bucket challenge. And the first thing I did after meeting the guys and convincing them that I was the right person to sort of lead this effort, I also named the campaign. But I was like, if it was a team campaign that like any creator could pick up instead of just the two of you and your audience, like we could actually scale, and we could do that in a way that draws on some of the best lessons from what's called distributed organizing within sort of the social movement world. The idea that you could go on a website and find or start an action near you, right? Like you've seen probably if you've gone to any rally, like you find the pinprick on the map and you see the event details and you decide if you want to attend it or you create your own. And so that was some work that I had helped to really take global back in 2009 with the climate movement. But nowadays it's really common, but no one had really taken that kind of mass potluck style of organizing and brought it to the creator economy. So my idea was like, what if instead of all those dots on a map, right, all those rallies around the world that were being connected through a shared story and a shared call to action, what if those pins on a map were actually videos or pieces of social content that influencers and creators and people with audience all over the internet were like, they were making content and inviting people in to join something together. And that ended up being a crowdfunding campaign where $1 donated generated 1 tree planted by the Arbor Day Foundation, and that was Team Trees. And we ended up, exceeding our wildest hopes and actually raising the money. We raised $20 million in 56 days. At the time, it was like I was benchmarking against presidential primary fundraising. Like there was just it was like a Biden level fundraising, and faster than Biden. But there were no creators doing it at that scale. There was some other fundraising that was happening, like some great sort of live stream, like telethon models that like Jacksepticeye and other folks were doing. But no one had really tried to open it up in that way where any creator, anyone with an audience could tap in. And importantly, invite their audience to join in with them as part of a shared collective, a shared team. And Team Trees really tapped into something that creators do so well, which is create relationships with their audience and then co-create what that relationship turns into, right? And so in our case, that was kids at school organizing with their teachers to do fundraisers within their community, and then talking to their parents about the importance of planting trees and the importance of protecting the environment. But then also not just raising money, which was going towards the $20 million, 20 million tree goal, but like later on, like ripping up school lawns that weren't being used and planting forest gardens, or advocating for reforesting areas of their communities that had been clear cut or whatever. So there was a lot of side effects and ripple effects that were really positive that showed me that this was something that I wanted to continue investing in with my work. And even as we were doing that, people were saying, "Hey, like do the ocean next, like help the ocean." And I'd worked at Ocean Conservancy. I had a bunch of connections in ocean philanthropy, and so during the pandemic, instead of like going on a roadshow and sort of telling the nonprofit sector about the success of this like new innovative campaign model that we had with Team Trees, I basically took care of my toddler at home, and in between would have meetings with folks and sort of who knew about ocean conservation and say like, what would you do for $1 if I could get tens of millions of them, right? Like what would be tangible and quickly generate like a positive emotional response to someone when they like see a tweet, for example, such that we could earn their attention and bring them deeper into a community and a movement that was doing something at scale. And so Team Seas was a successful attempt, thankfully, to raise $30 million to remove 34 million pounds of trash and plastic from rivers, beaches, and oceans around the world. That was a partnership with two nonprofits, two great nonprofits. And then most recently, we did Team Water, which over the month of August, just 31 intense, wild days, we raised over $40 million to provide 2 million people around the world clean water for decades. And that's a partnership led by WaterAid, which is a global water access nonprofit, and supported by like Dig Deep in the United States, the Alok Institute in Brazil, and Give Power, which is another fantastic innovative water organization operating internationally. So yeah, it was wild. We got 15,000 creators across the internet, across platforms to pitch in. We had some record-setting live stream philanthropy events, 2 billion views, sort of the biggest creator of philanthropy campaign in history. And yeah, it was tremendously exciting. And, crypto donors stepped up. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to come here and talk to y'all about it, because it was really the internet coming together for a good news story to help people, but also to connect it back to that kind of fist bump Mother Earth style of environmentalism, because we know that to provide clean water to people for decades, we have to deal with a changing world, right? And that means being smart about the investments that we're making and how we're doing it in partnership with local communities. So yeah, I mean, it's been quite a ride, and I'm really grateful to Mark and Jimmy for the continued partnership and for their faith in me. But more so, I'm grateful to the community of like hundreds of thousands of people around the world in basically every country on earth that's connected to the open internet, to step up and support this work and to say, yes, we want to be part of this team. And so whether they watched a video or they told a friend, they donated $1, or in some cases, $1 million, we are just in awe of the potential of what happens when creators and causes come together. And we see ourselves as stewards of trust. And that's something that we take really seriously when we're operating with this big a platform on such important foundational causes, as planting trees and keeping plastic out of the oceans, and now bringing clean water to people around the world.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch the evolution, and also just so easy to like that message. $1 does this. I feel like you've summarized it really well in terms of like how the message gets out there, how you have created a great platform for participation, how that message expands, and it's such an easy message to kind of grasp and immediately want to like be part of the team. It feels so exciting to be able to participate. It's been interesting to see, like we've been partnering on this, from Team Trees and Team Seas and now Team Water. And we've kind of seen crypto increase as the industry has matured and more people have come into the crypto ecosystem and even sort of like the crypto philanthropy space. But curious how you guys have seen it from your end, because certainly it kind of blew us all away on Team Water when we just saw the fact that about a quarter of transactions were from the crypto community or moving through crypto rails. I think it kind of caught all of us pleasantly surprised, which is great. I think it sort of validated some of what we hope and expected to see is a sort of natural evolution, natural progression of giving, and that sort of global nature and your global platform just seems to mesh really nicely with this community that's already really philanthropically minded. But yeah, would love to kind of get your take on how you guys saw it from your perspective.
Yeah, I think I met up with the Giving Block when we were planning Team Trees, and the question was like, should we take crypto, right? And we ended up having a partnership on that. The Giving Block was our payment processor when we ran Team Trees back in 2019. Um, and so I was introduced to the team and had a lot of conversations. It was really like a deep dive for me into this emerging sort of philanthropic lane, right? And this way of tapping into to a community of donors who I wasn't really exposed to, even with my expertise in sort of digital marketing on the advocacy side. Um, and what I found was huge potential, right? But it was unclear like which currencies were going to stick around. It was, there were questions of like environmental intensity, and there was a real, I think the audience also, our supporter base, had a lot of questions about it, right? And so for the people who were in, like they were in and they appreciated that we had payment methods that met them where they were. The rest of the donor community, I would say, like didn't want to hear about it, and in some cases were like openly oppositional. And I don't think those questions have like been 100% resolved. I think it's something that the crypto community needs to continue to address. But for us, like we saw a lot of support, and the thing that really impressed me was the communities, sort of the affinity communities that would spring up, and like how well organized they were. As an organizer myself, I keep an eye out for people who are doing things together around, shared values, and, with like a level of sophistication that makes things happen. Right. And that's what I saw from crypto. So it's been a learning journey for me, for sure. Like from Team C's, from Team Trees to Team C's, and now to Team Water. With Team Water, I think for the first time I saw reality exceed some of the hype, and I was not expecting a quarter of our donations to come through crypto. I wish that I had. I'd be I could be a Svengali, or a futurist possibly. But to me, it continued to be a real center for like essentially community activation and engagement. And we saw, OpenSea did an NFT to support us through their charity. We saw Leap did an amazing live stream, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And just in terms of our partnership with Tiltify, who is the biggest sort of creator fundraising platform, and their integration with the Giving Block, I think it was really important to us that regardless of where someone shows up from in the world, wherever they are geographically, when they come to teamwater.org, we want them to feel like seen and a part of the team. And part of that is like removing friction so that they can give in the way that meets them where they are. So we always talk about, dating back to my early kind of public service days at AmeriCorps at United Way, they would talk about people giving time, talent, or treasure, right? And I think that when people are giving their treasure, whether that's $1 or millions of dollars, you want them to be able to do that in a way that resonates with them. And so making sure that there's a good product experience, there's a good removing as much friction as possible and allowing the donor as much choice as possible in that moment when they're choosing to support something that they've been invited to support that's resonated with them. I want to get out of the way. I want them to be centered, and I'm grateful that the technology is there that like we can make that happen. Like at the bottom line, I don't want to be thinking about the type of payment processor that they're using. I love seeing the communities that are organizing on our top teams leaderboard. Like, so the website basically, if you haven't seen it, uh, has lists of the most recent donations, the biggest single donors, and then the top communities, right? And crypto showed up across all three leaderboards. And I think the top communities one is really powerful because it shows that, you can, yes, you can make an individual donation, you can make content about the campaign, you can support it. But when you invite other people in, that's really one of the most powerful ways of growing a cause, a movement, a moment. And that becomes kind of a positive flywheel, which brings in more people. And that's one of the places that I saw the crypto community step up, and they were constantly surprising me with their creativity, um, regardless of like sort of which currency they were using, or you know um, which thing I had to Google in order to learn about it. I was calling up Pat Duffy at the Giving Block and being like, Pat, like walk me through this, because there's just so much innovation. I think it's not all, all the rough edges aren't smoothed off yet, but having a partner who, in Tiltify and with the Giving Block, who can help, like 80% of everything was already figured out. And then we were just talking about like the strange edge cases and trying to figure out like, you know, is this a positive thing we should support? Like, is this like a weird innovation that we're just going to sort of wait and see? Um, I wouldn't want to say that like none of that exists, because that's just not true. But to me, the trajectory is really powerful, and I mean the results speak for themselves. And like easily, I mean, if we look at the overall impact goal, 2 million people getting clean water for 20 plus years, uh, crypto was responsible for 500,000 of those people, right? Like that's a real tangible impact, and that's also one that I feel a deep responsibility, and I know the creators do as well, to like safeguard and to make sure that we're able to stand behind that for years, and literal decades, along with our partners around the world.
That's amazing. And when we have conversations with nonprofits about, inviting new communities in, meeting people where they are, getting out of the way of, giving friction. I mean, it's been really cool to see this evolution take shape and continue to mature in the nonprofit space. And like you rightly said, I mean, crypto donors have been so, mission oriented. They love seeing like what the tangible impact is. I think it, could be, part of why, so energizing for the crypto community. Again, not just because it's matured, the community's been growing so much. It was a great way to kind of like galvanize excitement and support. And man, do they rally, for
They
something they
do.
really
Yeah.
love. So I guess 20 million at Team Trees, 30 million Team Seas, 40 million Team Water. Is there something else in the offing? You don't have to, break any news here, but I'm just kind of wondering, kind of like the typical kind of like, well, what's next? And everybody's like, all right, great, you did that. What's next?
Yeah. So people always ask me this question. I mean, after Team Trees, right? The question was, what's next? Um, thankfully, I broke the streak of them having to rhyme, right? So before we did Team Water, everyone was always asking me about Team Bees, and I still think the pollinators need some help, but we don't, we don't have any news to break here. But what I will say is that, like, number one, if you look at what Mark and Jimmy are both working on, and yeah, I'm grateful to keep working with both of them as clients. Like Mr. Beast's philanthropic mission is to make kindness go viral, right? And so the team campaigns are fantastic expressions of that, but they're not the only thing that he's doing. And specifically, like there's a deep commitment to removing child labor from the cocoa supply chain. Because Jimmy's been working and learning a lot about the chocolate industry as he's been growing the Feastables brand. Mark has been solidifying his leadership in STEM education and has been doing some really innovative partnerships with next-gen science teachers and trying to bring some of the magic of creator content to some maybe a little past their prime, YouTube videos that people are still using in middle school science classes around the country. But I think both of them show that when creators tap into their authentic, like genuine passions and their values and use their influence for good, all of a sudden, like doors start to open, both in the audience's minds, like literally, like people will start paying attention, whether that's kids in the classroom or a parent who's seeing their kid so excited at dinner that they're like, in our case, hearing about clean water facts around the kitchen table. I got multiple texts about that, like literally from people who are like, my kid doesn't even get screen time. How do they know about like 1 in 10 people on earth not having clean water access? I think that's your fault, Matt. And I was like, guilty as charged. So each one of them is an example of what happens when, again, creators start creating, but around purpose, right? And my job, and what I hope to do more of, is partnering with creators to find what those things are, and then designing activations and long-running partnerships that really allow them to build legacies of impact aligned with what they want to do and where there's a need, right? And I think when they do that, they're able to really engage their audiences in ways that go beyond just like, a brand deal, right? Or, hey, download this mobile game. Like, this is more about building that, as we were talking about before, building that community feeling. And when we do that, we know that people working together around shared values can accomplish incredible things when they tap into their creativity. So that's where I see the potential. And what I want to do is create more pathways for creators at all level to be able to do that. I think it should be part of how, like, when we think about what good influence looks like, right? Like that has to be it. Like, I don't know what else it would be, but I think that the ecosystem of support in the creator economy has not fully been there. And a lot of that is because philanthropy, the world I came from, and I was an evaluator, I was a nonprofit program manager, I was a digital marketer for causes, I was a philanthropic advisor. Like, I've worn a lot of hats. So I think that's one of the strengths that I bring, is like being able to integrate some of these like newer concepts, bridge these worlds, right? And keep a clear outcome, a clear goal in mind, and then deliver. It takes a real kind of a generalist skill set to be able to be one of the first people to do that, right? But what I'm hoping is that I can help other people and create systems of support so that there's a pipeline of creators who are coming up who see success not as success as being like infused with purpose, right? And that's what it looks like. It's not like, when I retire, I donate my money, right? Because I think one of the things that we've seen, and my friend Shira with Creators for Mental Health just came out with some research that shows that like a lot of creators are dealing with real issues of burnout and with mental health issues. And so this is an industry where kids are growing up and saying that they want to be influencers when they're older, or maybe just a little bit older. And regardless of what you think about that, like that's the reality right now, right? And so creating pathways for people to have more sustainable careers in the creator economy, whether they're in front of the camera or behind the camera, making sure that the influence that's being built is being channeled towards like good causes. And then importantly, helping bring along some of the organizations that are embedded in communities expert on these issues, but maybe have been left behind by the shift from Facebook and Twitter to TikTok and YouTube, or streaming, right? That's something that, like, these are the most important causes on the planet and in our communities locally. Like, we need them to be showing up where people are giving their attention and where they're engaging online. And because if they don't, like, we're going to have just kind of, it's going to be really sparse and depressing society that we have on the internet. Like, and the internet is not just something that we are setting aside and saying like, oh, that's the digital world and we live in meat space. It's all the same now. Like, we're all on our phones, and you see the effects of the internet in physical infrastructure and in culture. And what I'm trying to do is like bridge those things together so that the folks doing the best work are able to get attention and eyeballs and tap into that creativity that's building community, that's building movements, and is increasingly directing resources and showing where people want things to go. So hopefully we've been sort of a lighthouse for that, but it can't just be at the campaign level or the one-off like fundraiser level. We've got to start thinking about how we shift the culture of the creator economy if we want it to be a force for good. And that's the place that I'm trying to play. And I'm really grateful that I get to work with some of the best in the industry to make that happen, because it opens doors and because they're deeply committed to it themselves. So yeah, I think, and also, coming back here and sharing some of the stories from this work, I think is really important, because you're also engaged in this, trying to bring nonprofits and philanthropy into this new domain and help them get smart about it fast so that they can really focus on what they do best.
Yeah, well, I think you guys have done a phenomenal job of just, building that awareness, showing what can be done. We're seeing this evolution, and you're right. I mean, we're all doing things digitally on our phones, and it's great to, be able to, bring people into more participation, through all this new innovative technology. I think we'll see it continue to evolve. As we've said before, the crypto community is so predominantly younger, philanthropically minded, active, enthusiastic, engaged, and it's really been very cool to see. I mean, the Giving Block team loves the fact that we get a front row seat to a ton of great philanthropy and a new technology that just empowers more giving. And it's phenomenal to have you all out there, really being such a lightning rod for this, that I think will gain further attention, further excitement. I'm sure it's going to have some great ripple effects in the industry. And shout out to not only the great philanthropic partners that you've partnered with over the years, but our technology partners, Tiltify. But I guess maybe to kind of close things out, Matt, anything I didn't ask about, anything you want to just make sure people know, and we'll put, all the relevant links to the show notes. I think most of the people know where to find, Mr. Beast, but, if they wanted to learn more about you and the work and what the team's doing, happy to kind of give you the floor to, make sure that there isn't anything I overlooked and where people can learn more.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm mostly behind the curtain, but if people want to check out my website, it's at fitz.partners. I'm on LinkedIn. That's usually how people find me after they usually reach out and they say, like, we'd love to get Mr. Beast at our conference. And then I say, well, he's a little busy shooting a video right now, but I might be convinced. Again, to me, like, this work is too important because the causes that people are working on are the most important ones in the world, right? And whether that's at a local level or a state level, a country level, or global, finding ways to bring people into common cause, especially for me when it's about climate, are like, that's where my heart's at, and I'm continuing to look for ways to catch up to, I want to be winning, right? And I just think that when you read the news, when you look at scientific reports, sometimes objective reality is not where political reality is. And I'm trying to find ways to shift culture and organize creators and really be doing this work for the long haul. So if that resonates with you, like, please reach out. And if it doesn't, I hope you still learn something. And again, this is a journey that no one is going to be able to do on their own. And I'm grateful to have partners on this path. And I hope that the next time that I hear about an amazing creator philanthropy campaign or activation, like, I had nothing to do with it, like that, I would love that. And I would love to be in a convening where, like, we're just sharing lessons learned and, like, how we did it, right? I think those spaces need to exist too. So yeah, hopefully, Nick, the next time that we're meeting, maybe it's in one of those places. And to everyone listening, thank you so much if you joined Team Water or Team Seas or Team Trees. And if you haven't yet, you can go to any one of those websites. Actually, you can't go to Team Seas because we turned off the donations. But you could go plant a tree right now. You could go to teamwater.org and give someone a year of clean water with our amazing partners. And we are so deeply grateful for it. But yeah, go check it out. Donate some crypto and see what we're all about.
I love it. Well, I think everybody's on team generosity, that's for sure. So, Matt, thanks so much for joining. This was fantastic. And we'll put all those relevant links in the show notes. And with that, we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.